The forks clinked gently against mismatched plates, the scent of baked chicken and garlic rice filling the small dining room. Outside, the hum of sprinklers echoed through the dusk, a peaceful rhythm wrapping the neighborhood in early autumn. Calm. Inside, tension hung like a thread not yet pulled. 9-year-old Imani poked at her green beans. Her curls drooped over her cheek, hiding her face until she brushed them back with her wrist, then glanced up. "Mom," she said suddenly, "are you 5 months pregnant?" Tasha froze mid-bite. The fork hovered in the air, trembling slightly. Across the table, Darnell's brow furrowed. "What?" he asked, voice soft but sharp. "Say that again?" Imani shrugged, a little confused, but mostly proud. She remembered the exact words. "Are you 5 months pregnant?" she repeated. "That's what Ms. Walker said when I was holding my stomach in class." She said it real loud and laughed. Ashes. Fork clattered to her plate. There was a pause, thick, electric. Imani looked between them. Was it funny? Darnell pushed back from the table, the chair legs scraping against the tile. His jaw clenched, and for a moment he just stood there, hands on his hips, staring at the wall like it might explain something to him. "She said that to you?" he asked, carefully now. Measured yaha. Imani nodded, sipping her juice. "She patted my tummy and said it like I was a grown-up. Everyone laughed, so I think it was a joke." Tasha reached across the table, taking Imani's small hand. Her own was shaking. "Baby, why were you holding your stomach? I skipped lunch. Wasn't hungry. I didn't like the meatloaf." Darnell's voice cracked as he spoke. "You didn't eat, and he didn't finish the sentence." He turned and walked out of the kitchen. The hallway light flicked on, drawer opened, then silence. Tasha pulled Imani close, pressing her cheek to her daughter's curls. She whispered, "You did nothing wrong. You hear me?" The sound of numbers being dialed echoed from the hallway. Darnell returned with his phone to his ear, voice low but firm. "Yes, I need to file a report. It's about an incident at Hawthorne Elementary. My daughter was harassed by a teacher today." Imani stared at him, eyes wide. She had never seen her father this still, or this furious. Outside, the sprinklers stopped. Inside, something else had just begun, 7 hours earlier. The classroom smelled like dry markers and overripe bananas. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Imani sat in the second row, arms folded tightly over her stomach. Her head throbbed slightly, not from pain, but from the hollow ache of hunger. She had skipped lunch. The cafeteria meatloaf looked like something scraped off the sidewalk. Instead, she sat alone on the edge of the playground, knees pulled up to her chest, pretending to read now during math. Her stomach growled a long, complaining groan that made the boy behind her snicker miss. Walker, leaning over a stack of worksheets, looked up. "Everything okay, Imani?" she asked in a voice that made the rest of the class quiet. Imani nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am," she said, instinctively sitting straighter. But Ms. Walker stepped closer. You were holding your belly? What's going on?" Chipper, too loud. "Are you 5 months pregnant or something?" The room burst into laughter. Not cruel, not kind. It's just loud. Imani blinked, her cheeks flushed. She didn't know exactly what pregnant meant. Not really, but she knew it wasn't a word grown-ups should throw around like that. She forced a smile, small and shaky. She didn't know how to respond, so she said nothing. Ms. Walker chuckled, patting Imani's stomach like a balloon. "You been sneaking extra snacks, huh?" she added before turning back to the whiteboard. The class moved on, long division resumed. But Imani had vanished inside herself. She stared at the numbers swimming on the page. 617, 102 but her mind was far away. Her hand returned protectively to her stomach, this time not from hunger but shame. She thought maybe she did look different. Was her belly that big? She slid down slightly in her chair. The school bell finally rang. Students rushed out, tossing papers into backpacks and heading toward the yellow buses waiting outside. Imani walked slower than usual, head down, backpack slung over one shoulder. Her body suddenly felt too visible, like she was being watched. From all angles. On the ride home, she sat alone by the window, cheek pressed to the glass, watching the world blur by. When she got off at her stop, she didn't run home the way she usually did. Her feet dragged. She'd saved the words all afternoon, letting them sit in her chest like stones. Not until dinner did she let them out. "Are you 5 months pregnant?" She had repeated them the same way Ms. Walker had said them, bright, casual, unbothered. But now she was in her bed, curled under the blankets, listening through her cracked bedroom door. Her father was still on the phone. Her mother paced the kitchen, quietly crying. Imani stared at the ceiling, still unsure why everything had gone so wrong. She thought it was just a joke. The next morning, Darnell stood in the main office of Hawthorne Elementary, arms crossed, jaw tight. The pastel-colored walls and cartoon animal posters did nothing to soften the edge in his chest. Principal Lorene Sheffield greeted him with a practiced smile. Tight, formal. "Mr. Cooper, please come in," she said, motioning to the chairs. Across from her desk, Darnell sat, spine straight, eyes unblinking. "Let's not waste time," he said. "I want to talk about what Ms. Walker said to my daughter yesterday." In front of her class. Sheffield folded her hands, her wedding ring flashing under the fluorescent lights. "I've spoken with Ms. Walker," she began carefully. She admits the comment was perhaps inappropriate in tone, but she assures me it was meant as a light-hearted joke. Nothing malicious. Darnell stared. "She patted my daughter's stomach and asked if she was pregnant." "Yes, and she regrets the phrasing." "No, you don't get to rephrase that." "My daughter is 9. The temperature in the room shifted. Sheffield cleared her throat. "Mr. Cooper, we understand your concern, but I'd ask you to consider the context. Ms. Walker has an excellent record. She's been with us for 12 years." Darnell exhaled slowly, clenching his fists beneath the desk. "Do you know how many times this school has pulled Imani aside for an appropriate dress? She's 9. Her shirts ride up a little when she raises her hand, and suddenly she's violating a code." Sheffield blinked, silent. "I've kept the notes," he continued, "the warnings. The detention for talking in class when white boys next to her were louder. You think this is about one joke? It's a pattern. You police her body, her voice." Sheffield shifted in her chair. "We follow district policy?" "No, you don't," he snapped. "You follow bias, and you wrap it in district policy." Silence. Darnell stood. "I'm filing a formal complaint. Not just against Ms. Walker, but against this administration. I want the school board involved. I'm not going to let my daughter think being humiliated in public is normal. Mr. Cooper, please, I'll be documenting everything from now on." He walked out without another word. Outside, the autumn wind slapped his face as he dialed a number from a crumpled flyer someone had once given him at a PTA meeting, Community Advocates for Racial Equity. "Hello?" came the voice on the other. "Ind. My name is Darnell Cooper," he said. "My daughter's in the 3rd grade. A teacher humiliated her yesterday. It's not the first time this school has done something like this. Need help." His voice didn't shake this time. The house was quiet, save for the low rumble of the dryer and the occasional creak of settling floorboards. Darnell was in the garage, still pacing, still on the phone. Imani sat curled on the living room couch, knees to chest, cartoons flickering soundlessly in front of her. Tasha watched her daughter from the doorway, a mug of cooling tea in her hands. Imani's eyes weren't really on the screen. They drifted, unfocused, like she was somewhere else entirely. Tasha walked over and sat beside her, pulling the Afghan blanket over both their laps. "Scoot," she whispered. Imani leaned against her without a word. They sat like that for a minute, the silence more honest than anything else. Then softly, "Baby, do you understand why what she said was wrong?" Imani shrugged. She was just playing, I think. People laughed. Tasha bit her lip. That laugh. That kind of laugh can hurt. Even if they don't say it's mean. Imani turned to her. "But why did Daddy get so mad?" Tasha exhaled slowly. "'Cause he knows what the world can do to a little girl like you. Especially when you're black. When people think it's okay to comment on your body. Even when you're a child. That's not just a joke. It teaches you something. Something wrong." Imani blinked. Tasha's heart cracked. Sharp and instant, she pulled her daughter closer. "No, baby, you're beautiful, strong, and your body is yours. No one gets to make fun of it. Imani nodded against her shoulder, small and uncertain. Did it ever happen to you? Tasha hesitated. Yes, she said at last, in 5th grade. A teacher told me my hips were growing early, in front of the whole class. I didn't even know what that meant yet, but I felt dirty after. I didn't raise my hand for the rest of the year. Imani looked up at her. What did Grandma do? She didn't know. I never told her. Tasha kissed the top of Imani's head. But I'm telling you now because I won't let silence keep hurting us. Outside, a car door slammed. Inside, Darnell stepped in from the garage, a flyer. In his hand, his eyes burning with determination, Tasha looked at him, then back at Imani. We're gonna fix this, baby. You hear me? We're not staying quiet. By Monday morning, the air around the Coopers' house felt different charged. Tasha noticed it first when she opened the blinds and saw a news van idling across the street. A man in a windbreaker stood outside the elementary school's chain link fence rehearsing lines into a microphone. It didn't take long for the neighbors to notice. Guess y'all made the paper, one muttered in passing. No smile. Just a glance at the lawn sign that read, Equity is not optional. Inside, Imani sat at the kitchen table, not in her school uniform, but in leggings and a hoodie. She was supposed to be doing her reading assignment, but her pencil hovered above the page like it didn't want to land. Tasha crouched beside her. We're going to keep you home for a little, all right? It's just until things settle. Imani nodded without lifting her eyes. I didn't mean for it to be a big thing, she whispered. Tasha wrapped her arms around her. You didn't make it a big thing, grown folks did. You were brave, baby. That's all. Later that afternoon, a knock came at the door. Darnell opened it to find a tall man in a fitted gray peacoat and wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Cooper? Me, the man extended a hand. Malik Johnson. I'm with Care Community Advocates for Racial Equity. We got your email. Read your daughter's story. Not the first we've heard like it from that district. They sat around the dining table, Malik pulling out documents, precedent cases, and district policy manuals like armor. There's strength in visibility, he said, but it comes with risk. You need to know that, as folks might call, threaten. Deny but public pressure makes school boards move. Darnell asked. She'll likely be protected unless there's a direct violation on record. But a civil rights complaint puts it in writing. And a town hall? Malik looked up. That puts it on tape, or the living room where. Imani sat on the floor with her knees tucked into her chest. She's scared. Feels like everyone's looking at her now. Malik nodded solemnly. They are. But not all of them are looking to judge. Some are looking to stand beside her. That Friday, the Coopers' mailbox held hate and hope side by side, anonymous typed letters calling them liars, and handwritten cards thanking them for speaking out. Imani found one from a girl named Leela, who wrote, I saw you on the news. That teacher laughed at me too. I'm glad you said something. Wish I had. Imani folded the letter like it was fragile and tucked it into her backpack. Outside, cars slowed as they passed the house. Inside, Imani whispered, Everyone's watching me. Tasha wrapped an arm around her. Then let them see how strong you are. The community center gym buzzed with voices, folding chairs scraping across hardwood. Posters lined the back wall. Justice and education. Listen to our children. We are not imagining this. Malik stood near the podium, flipping through notes. While Darnell paced in the back like a storm barely held in, Tasha smoothed the shoulders of Imani's jacket. You don't have to speak, she said gently. Only if you want to. Imani glanced up at the crowd adults with arms crossed, clipboards clutched, some with cameras. She swallowed. I want to. The district superintendent sat near the front. Flanked by school board members, Ms. Walker sat beside them, stiff in a tan blazer. She kept her eyes fixed on the wall behind the podium. Malik stepped forward. His voice rang through the mic, calm and exacting. We're here tonight not for vengeance, but for truth. The kind that rarely makes it into board meetings or discipline reports. He introduced parents who had filed complaints over the years. After another, black mother whose son had been suspended for tapping a pencil, a father whose daughter was reprimanded for attitude. During a science project, Each voice chipped at the carefully painted facade of fairness. Then the superintendent approached the mic. Her words were polished, flat. We acknowledge that harm may have been felt. But after reviewing the situation, we believe there was a misunderstanding rooted in miscommunication, not malice. No apology. No names, Ms. Walker leaned in toward the mic. I never meant to offend. It was a poorly timed joke, and it's been taken out of context. She folded her hands and sat back. Darnell's fists clenched in his lap. Then quietly. Imani stood. Every head turned. She walked slowly toward the podium, small sneakers squeaking on the wood. Alik stepped back. The room seemed to hold its breath. Imani gripped the mic with both hands. I didn't understand what the joke meant at first, she said, voice soft. But it made people laugh at me. Then I couldn't stop thinking. Maybe there's something wrong with me, like my body was a joke. A hush swept the room. My mom told me I'm not the first little girl to feel that way. That grown-ups sometimes think they can say things to us like we won't remember. But I did. She looked directly at the school board. I still do. Silence. A woman in the back clapped once, then again. Soon the room filled with applause, not wild, not frenzied. It's just real. Ms.? Walker didn't look up. Darnell wiped his eyes. Tasha smiled through tears. Imani stepped down, her hands shaking, but her spine tall. Spring came late that year. The trees outside Hawthorne Elementary wore their blossoms like hesitant promises, and the morning air still held the bite of February. But inside the front office, something had shifted. Not loudly, not fast, undeniably. Ms. Walker was gone, reassigned. The district said, no apology ever came, no public admission of fault. But new memos had circulated. Sensitivity training. Policy revisions. A quiet ripple beneath the surface of the same old structure. Imani returned to school 3 weeks after the town hall. Her first day back was like stepping into a room that had been rearranged in her absence. Teachers smiled too widely. Students whispered too softly. The hallways buzzed with attention she didn't yet have words for, but she felt it in her bones. Still, she walked taller. Her new teacher, Ms. Rivas, greeted her each morning with a gentle nod, never touching her unless asked. At recess, Imani sat under the old oak tree with 2 girls from another class, Leela and Samira. They traded lunch, snacks, and stories about their favorite books. No one asked her about the news anymore. The world didn't forget, just moved forward, unevenly. At home, the Coopers were finding their own rhythm again. Darnell worked later. Hours now, spending evenings, reviewing district budgets, and attending board meetings. Tasha had joined a parent equity group that met every Wednesday night in the church basement. But it was Imani. School surprised them all. One afternoon, she handed Darnell a stack of lined paper, neatly written, single-spaced, with a title in bold. Letters at the top. I am not a joke, he read it slowly, his thumb brushing the edge of each page like it might catch fire. They laughed at me, but I didn't know why. Now I do. They thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. They thought I'd forget, but I won't. I'm not too loud. I'm not too much. I'm not something to laugh at. I am someone you should listen to. When he finished, he said nothing at first, just handed it back with glassy eyes and pulled her into a hug. Imani smiled, her arms wrapping around him. I want to read it at school, she whispered, for the assembly. You sure? He asked. She nodded. I don't feel small anymore. Outside, the sun dipped low behind the rooftops, painting the living room in amber inside. Imani sat at the dining table, already rewriting her final paragraph in blue ink. Her letters stronger, surer. She didn't wait for permission. She wrote for power.